Pray with me. O Lord, our God, soften our hearts to hear and learn the holy word that rescues and restores us. Amen. I have an invisible disability. A hearing impairment from birth means that I am almost totally deaf in my left ear. In public settings, I angle to keep the world on my right. My family members are so trained that they find it awkward to walk on anybody's left or to watch a movie without closed captioning or subtitles. When I can't catch keywords in a conversation, I watch people's faces for emotional clues. Even with all of my compensation strategies, I know that I still miss things. It can be embarrassing. It can be humorous. For years, when I was young, my parents and doctors diligently monitored my hearing in the hope that my hearing loss wasn't degenerative. We wondered if I should learn sign language. We sought a cure. Would hearing aids or surgery help? They would not. My hearing loss is permanent, but stable. We'll see how aging goes. Today, the gospel writer Mark gives us two emotionally charged Jesus stories back to back. In the second one, there's a man with a visible disability in the synagogue where Jesus is. The man lives with a withered hand. But Mark doesn't give us the man's background. Was his hand withered from birth? Was there an illness? Was there an accident? And Mark doesn't give us the man's strategies. How does he compensate for his disability? Does he have support from his family? Does he experience judgment or prejudice? Is he financially disadvantaged in a manual labor economy? We can guess. We could probably guess well, given the times, but we don't know. Mark's sparing details about the man tell us that he is not the main character of this story, only that he is the lightning rod for a sharp encounter between main characters, Jesus and the Pharisees. You see, the Pharisees, they show up a lot in the Gospels and in the book of Acts, and they are not flat characters against all that is good and right. The Pharisees started out as a small cohort of religiously devout artisans and farmers, people who work with their hands. And they separated themselves out from the dominant Greco-Roman culture and philosophy of the day. Instead of that dominant culture and philosophy, they accepted, they practiced, they preserved, and they taught the ancient traditions of Israel. Through their religious expertise and rigor, they grew and they ascended to religious and political leadership. The Pharisees had an outsized influence on Jewish identity. And being a devout Jew himself, there is much about which Jesus and the Pharisees agree. And the dialogue between them about God, God's people, and their history together could be very constructive and spiritually enriching. For these two encounters between Jesus and the Pharisees in the grain fields and in the synagogue, observing the Sabbath is the marker of Jewish identity. The command to observe the Sabbath goes all the way back to the wilderness between Egypt and the Promised Land. Because the people of Israel were slaves, Because the people of Israel were slaves in Egypt, laboring without respite under a hardened empire, God stretched out God's hand to rescue and restore the people. God gave them what they didn't have before, a weekly respite from the grind, during which they could recall who and whose they were. The Sabbath was a weekly respite from the grind, during which they could recall who and whose they were. Stop the treadmill. Relieve their shoulders of the weight of the world. Free up their hands. Remember that I am the Lord your God who rescues and restores you. Remember that I am the Lord your God who rescues and restores you. And this word comes to us as well. We receive this command too. It is part of our Christian identity and tradition. However, it turns out that we need far more than the command to take a day off work for worship every week. Left in our hands, observing the Sabbath becomes one more way we seek to prove ourselves or improve ourselves. It becomes one more expectation that we can't live up to. It hardens, and the word of grace and mercy it's meant to share goes silent. When that happens, when the word of grace and mercy goes silent, we deal with that in one of two ways. We either double down or we shake it off. When we double down, we are likely to end up as rigid as the rules we impose. And when we shake it off, we are likely to end up spiritually empty and hungry for the bread of real presence. Jesus' ministry in these two stories today rejects both of these. He rescues and restores the Sabbath from what we humans make of it. He returns it to us as grace and mercy. The man with the withered hand is the lightning rod for this. You see, physical disability, visible or invisible, is just one way to be human. Some of us have disabilities, and some of us don't. Some of us don't have them yet, but we will later. And we will learn how to live with them, lean on our people, and develop compensation strategies. We will seek a cure, and sometimes we will find it. Sometimes it will find us. We give thanks for medical advances and medical providers. Still, it remains that physical disability neither diminishes nor enhances our humanity. Disability neither diminishes nor enhances our humanity. Disability is just one way of being human. So then, what is going on when Jesus cures the man with the withered hand, who, by the way, did not ask to be cured, nor did he draw attention to himself in any way? What is it that makes Jesus so angry? What is it that breaks Jesus' heart when he looks around the synagogue that Sabbath day? Jesus is both angry and sad about the hardness of the human heart. It's a condition that affects not only some, but all humans. A condition that diminishes our God-given humanity. Jesus is both angry and sad about the hardness of the human heart because this is a condition that affects all of us, and it's a condition that diminishes our humanity. If you saw it, do you remember the end of the animated movie Inside Out? It's been a while. The main character, Riley, she's an 11-year-old girl, and she's really hurting because of a cross-country move that her family made. She finally admits at the end of the movie to her parents what they already knew, that she is not okay. But now they can offer her comfort and understanding. Her deep sadness is tempered then with the joy of connection. If you haven't seen this movie, I really highly recommend it. The point is that when the human heart is hard, it is incapable of feeling the complex set of emotions that are needed to recognize our own humanity and that of others. When the human heart is hard, it's incapable of the complexity of emotion that we need to recognize our own humanity and that of others. And this compromises our ability to have constructive and enriching interactions with one another. So instead, we mercilessly take each other to task. And when we do that, we either have to harden our own hearts or tap out. And we saw this happen this week. The Lititz community saw this play out, and there are many people today with broken hearts because of it. When Jesus cures the man with the withered hand, it is an act of mercy. But if we think that it is about the disability or Jesus having something to prove, then we have missed it. Jesus takes us to the heart of the matter, crossing the boundary of Sabbath observation to expose the actual problem, which is the hardness of the human heart. There is only one thing. You see, there is only one thing that can rescue and restore the hard human heart, and it is not to prove yourself or to improve yourself. It is not to try harder. It is mercy. It is mercy. And mercy comes to you unbidden, when and where you least expect it. Maybe even in church on a Sunday morning. You may have come today with a broken heart, a hardened heart, or a sick heart, and all the ill effects of these. You may have come this morning to prove yourself or to improve yourself. To you, Jesus comes and stretches out his hand marked by the nails of mercilessly being taken to task. And he takes your heart, in whatever condition you find it today, into his merciful hands to restore it and seal it with the Sabbath promise that it is made for more. It is made to be with him forever. Amen.